Hi guys, my name is Casey. I was assigned to do this project on recruiting and selecting staff. Um, so our textbook had a lot of really awesome information on this subject. Just to start out as kind of introduction, the importance of this topic. Obviously, it affects our work environment every day because of the staff that we work with and the amount of teamwork that is involved with our job. So yes, it is very challenging, but it's also very important, especially with leadership and management. Quote out of the textbook, Sullivan, the purpose of recruitment is to locate and attract enough qualified applicants to provide a pool from which the required number of individuals can be selected. Also, there's a high importance in the selection of the individual because they have the ability to influence the work environment for years to come. I kind of already said that, but it also just shapes like the reputation of the unit and how other people see it. So recruitment, the where, how, and when. According to Sullivan, there are three important parts when looking for applicants: where to look, how to look, and when to look. So with the subject of where, some of the best places to look for potential nursing applicants are through social media, local schools, not only high schools, colleges, but I know in a lot of places there are career and technology centers where you can get your certified nursing assistant. So that's a really great place to look. And already existing employees of the organization. For example, a lot of the CNAs on the units end up going to school for nursing and then come back and work on the floor. So the how subject, common practices in making people aware of the open position through advertising in newspapers, posting on job search websites, which there's a ton of them out there, advertising in professional journals, and attendance at events such as professional conferences or career days. And the when subject, really, I feel like now that's always because of the nursing shortage, and it's just really important for the leader of the units to anticipate when openings are going to be available. Promotion, so this is really important, obviously, with recruiting. And along with the current nursing shortage, it's really important to implement strategies to make the position more appealing because there are a lot of hospitals out there, there are a lot of open positions, so the management really has to sell the job to attract nurses to work for us. According to, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, Salvucci, 2016, people are turning away the level of nursing students because of the negative aspects of the nursing shortage, which I can say personally, I started going to school for nursing and then stopped at my prerequisites because I saw a lot of the struggles that nurses were having, and at the time it wasn't working for me, but I went back to school, so I can definitely see a lot how that happens. Some important aspects of the job to advertise are the standards and quality of care that is provided, the respect, the reputation of the unit, organizational culture, scheduling as far as like being flexible and like, I guess, requiring working weekends, accessibility, pay and differentials, benefits, bonuses, insurance, and also retirement plans are really important to a lot of people. So the selection process, according to Sullivan, the book explains that the HR department is the first step in the selection process. So if the applicant does not meet the basic needs of the position description, then it's the HR's job to inform them. And then if they do meet the basic needs, then reference checks are the next process that the HR department does. A good quote out of the book: even if an applicant receives poor reference, it is prudent to carry out the interview so that the applicant is not aware that the reference check led to the negative decision, which I hadn't really thought of it before, but that's a really good point. Some interview strategies. According to Sullivan, it's important to have an interview guide in order to develop the consistency so the applicants can be compared. So, it's not just a random interview process. There's a certain set of questions, kind of like a protocol for the process. So the guide is supposed to be in writing, and it includes questions to ask and just general directions for the interviewer. On the applicant side of this process, it's also really important to see a fair interview process. Obviously, interviews can be really intimidating, and if you only have one shot to prove yourself, that's not really appealing and would probably turn a lot of people away from even applying to the job. In a study performed by Ritchie in 2018, there was a lot of success found in interview process that includes multiple mini interviews, a written exercise, a group discussion, and the review of the portfolio. So that just really evaluates the person on a lot of different levels instead of turning them away just because they couldn't answer certain questions, which is really important because obviously not all people are great at every aspect of interviewing. So the interview code of conduct. I find this really interesting because, going into interview for a job, you want to impress the employer so they hire you, but also on the other side of it, the employer really needs to make a good first impression and impress the applicant. That way they actually want to work for them. Which nursing, when I went for my interview, that's the first time I'd ever really experienced something like that, which is really nice. So in Sullivan, they suggest that techniques for opening the interview and kind of like setting the tone for the interview, and this is for the interviewer, is to be on time, introduce yourself, be warm, be friendly, smile, but body positioning is really important, body language. Ask the applicant their preferred name, and definitely create an open atmosphere. They said by minimizing your status, and I interpreted that just by saying, we will be working on the same level, not to be intimidated. That way, it can be more of an open discussion. Involving other staff members. So most nursing interviews are a panel of nurses. When I went for my interview, it was actually a nurse and the manager and a nursing assistant. So this is really important because obviously the nursing unit runs on teamwork, and it makes sense to involve other staff members in the process. In Sullivan, they state that involving staff in the interviews helps to strengthen teamwork, improves work group effectiveness, increases staff involvement in other unit activities, and increases the likelihood of selecting the best candidate for the position. Which all of that really makes sense when you look at how most units in the hospital work. So, of course, there's a lot of legal issues with hiring. A lot of historical events and past issues have kind of shaped the policies and the process of hiring. So with discrimination and equal opportunity for employment, there's a lot of opportunity for something to go wrong there. So it's really, really important to understand the legal aspects. In Sullivan, they really emphasize knowing the Civil Rights Act, Age Discrimination and Employment Act of 1967, Equal Pay Act of 1963, and the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990. So when it comes time to actually make the decision, this is going to be after narrowing down applicants who match the position and meet the basic needs of the description. So Sullivan lists 3 most important criteria as education, experience, and the licensure, so passing the NCLEX. When the decision is made, HR is responsible for the rest of the process, and this is going to be doing a more thorough background check to confirm any reported criminal history, confirming the licensure and employment history, and actually calling the person to make the offer, and then ensuring that the applicant does a drug screen within 24 hours of the offer if they do accept. And then after that, that means the offer is official. Impacts on current nurses. So I'm kind of going to focus on the nursing shortage, which ties in with recruitment and selecting staff. So this, as many of you know, I'm sure, affects us on a daily basis when we're working. So it should really be important to us, and we should place it high in priority, hopefully to influence how that turns out in the next few years. Hospitals are making changes constantly to try and kind of smooth over the impacts of the shortage. An example that I could think of was the Nurses Appreciation Week, where just a lot of nice treatment was given to the nurses to show appreciation. That and, for example, the critical need pay, which is really nice, and that does help with the staff shortage issue. So I'm sure coming soon, because of the predicted worsening of nursing shortage, we will see a lot of changes. And with some of the changes, this link is really insightful for just some basic stuff that can be done to help prevent the burnout. Let's see if I can open it from here. So it's a Med City News article. It's pretty short, easy to read through. Sorry, my computer's really slow. Well, let's see if I can click down here and get that out of the way. Okay, so there's an estimate that by 2022, 1.2 million roles of RNs will be left vacant. So that's a really large amount. That's kind of hard to wrap my head around how that can affect the shortage, but hopefully we can address that. And one of the ways we can address it is keeping the nurses that are already in the positions, so we don't have those empty positions. So some of the things that healthcare providers can do is bridge gaps in internal communication, give nurses control over their schedule, which a lot of places are already doing, but it's still not complete control over the schedule, and expand training offers. A lot of this is that I believe is realistic and can be done, and it's all just things that it's important to push for the change. And then kind of on the same role, what we can do as nurses. We can always influence on our unit. We can push for change in our individual hospitals, just communicate to our managers what we would want in order to stay in our position. So according to Spetz and Adams, 2006, some really good recommendations that we can push for are to create a more gradual retirement of nurses and kind of mix the age and the staffing. So instead of having 5 newer nurses and 2 seasoned nurses on the floor, make it 4 seasoned nurses and 3 of the newer nurses, which I understand that sometimes it can be unrealistic to do that, but there's definitely some work that can be improved on that. Give nurses a maximum amount of flexibility and invest in the future nurse workforce to ensure plans to address negative impacts of the nursing shortage. And lastly, just everyone do their best to create a positive work environment, because there's nothing worse than going to work and everyone being negative, and that's a really quick way to get burnt out. Here are these references, and that is it. Thank you for listening.